After the battle in Sarion, Kagali and Tear left behind only a brief message. They were pursuing Jahil. Though staying would have been the wiser choice, Kagali couldn't bear facing Empress Elmesia. Laplace, once Sylvia's husband and Elmesia's father, had been resurrected as a deathman, only to be erased by Jahil while protecting Kagali. Overwhelmed by grief and driven by revenge, she chose to act alone. Understanding her resolve, Elmesia and the others let her go without interference. Meanwhile, the warriors who remained collapsed from exhaustion. The battle for the Sacred Tree had pushed them to their limits, but Zalario, the enemy general, stood unshaken. Recognizing the need for recovery, Elmesia called for a break, and prearranged field kitchens provided warm meals. In an unexpected show of diplomacy, she offered food to Zalario and his forces, who accepted without hesitation. Having long survived on minimal sustenance, Zalario's soldiers had forgotten the simple pleasure of eating. For some, the warm meal was a revelation. Nice, one of Zalario's adjutants, acknowledged its significance, especially for lower-ranking soldiers who had only recently gained free will. The moment marked the start of a slow shift in their existence. As tensions eased, Zalario asked Leon about his next move. Unfazed, Leon prioritized rest, knowing greater battles awaited. Zalario agreed. Needless exhaustion would only weaken them for what lay ahead. Although Crimson found Zalario dull, Leon respected his pragmatism. With the Sacred Tree secured, a fragile peace settled in. But it didn't last. The calm was shattered by a dire omen. The apocalyptic declaration cast by Luminous appeared near the Sacred Tree, a chilling reminder that the real battle had only just begun. Atop the vast leaves of the Sacred Tree, key figures gathered for an emergency strategy meeting. Leon, Zalario, and his adjutants, Dollies and Nice, attended as guests. Elmesia opened the discussion, her concern mirrored by Sylvia as they faced an overwhelming crisis. The situation was dire. The Iverage threatened to invade the Axis world, a catastrophe they were duty-bound to prevent. But two devastating revelations interrupted their deliberations. Rimuru had vanished without a trace, and Milim, still rampaging uncontrollably, was once again heading for the Sacred Tree. If she destroyed it, the consequences could be irreversible, potentially dooming the world. Attempts to contact Rimuru and Tempest failed. Communications had been severed, likely by enemy interference. While troubling, there was no time to dwell on it. Milim's imminent arrival posed an immediate, insurmountable threat. Her overwhelming power could obliterate both the Sacred Tree and Sarion itself. With crisis piling upon crisis, there was no clear path forward, only impossible choices. The greatest obstacle was their lack of military strength. Even a well-prepared army would be powerless against Milim, let alone their already depleted forces. They had barely survived against Jahil. Against Milim, resistance seemed hopeless. The choice before them was grim: abandon the Sacred Tree and regroup with forces in Ruberios, or stand their ground, knowing it could mean certain destruction. Gerald had already begun large-scale evacuations, ensuring civilians reached safety. Yet, as the meeting wore on, the weight of their decision grew heavier. With Milim drawing closer, the choice they made now would decide not just the fate of the Sacred Tree, but perhaps the fate of the world itself. Gerald worked tirelessly to maintain order, ensuring the evacuation moved as swiftly as possible. But no matter how efficient, a complete success was impossible. There simply wasn't enough time. The people of Sarion abandoned their belongings, fleeing with only their lives. Yet even with all magical transportation operating at full capacity, the limit had been reached. Worse still, many refused to leave, unwilling to part with the Sacred Tree. The longer-lived races, in particular, accepted this as the natural end of their lifespans, resigning themselves to fate. The moment Milim arrived, their destiny would be sealed. If they wished to prevent this tragedy, their options were dwindling. Breaking the heavy silence, Leon spoke first. There was no other choice. He would face Milim alone, while Elmesia, as the Heavenly Emperor, had to lead her people to safety. But Elmesia immediately rejected the idea. As a ruler, it was her duty to defend her nation, not abandon it. When Leon tried to argue, she reminded him that Milim wasn't the only threat. Feldway was coming too. Strength alone wouldn't be enough. They needed every capable fighter. Leon fell silent, realizing that no matter how much he insisted, if he fell, Elmesia would be forced to fight regardless. Then Zalario spoke, his voice cold and resolute. He had a personal vendetta against Feldway. He would be the one to face him. Sylvia followed, assuring Elmesia that she, too, would fight to protect her daughter's legacy. But before she could finish, Elmesia cut her off. An emperor did not stand aside while others bore the burden. Strength wasn't what defined her, it was her authority, her duty, and her unwavering resolve. Even Sylvia, her own mother, hesitated before that conviction. Throughout her reign, Elmesia had always believed in a philosophy of prosperity and personal happiness, make my people happy while making myself even happier. But now there was no escape. If the world itself was on the brink of destruction, running away would be meaningless. She would stand with dignity until the end. Leon and Zalario, fully aware of the overwhelming odds, showed no hesitation. Even if defeat was inevitable, they would fight. Seeing their resolve, even Sylvia relented. She had wished for her daughter to live happily, but in the end, that wish was her own. If this was Elmesia's choice, there was no more reason to argue. Then, a flicker of hope, a report arrived that Veldora was on his way. If they could hold out long enough, reinforcements might still arrive. Their goal was no longer just survival. They had to endure, to fight with purpose until salvation came. And so, the decision was made. Leon, Zalario, Sylvia, and Elmesia would stand against Milim and Feldway, knowing they might not survive. But in their defiance, in their determination to fight against impossible odds, they clung to a single hope, that their world could still be saved. Zalario's troops were assigned to aid in Sarion's evacuation, but initial cooperation was hindered by conflicting chains of command. Eventually, their role shifted to surveillance and support, and under the adept leadership of Dollies and Nice, they coordinated effectively. This brought Zalario some relief, but he quickly steeled himself. Feldway's arrival was imminent. With no formal strategy, their only directive was survival. Against Milim, a single mistake meant instant death. To prevent her from unleashing Dragon Star Explosion Conqueror on the Sacred Tree, a catastrophe that would end everything, 3 speed specialists were assigned to keep her occupied. This, however, left Zalario to face Feldway alone. The weight of this responsibility sent a chill of anticipation through him. Sensing his unease, Leon attempted to reassure him, but Zalario knew better. Feldway's power was an enigma. His true form had not been seen for ages. Though Zalario had always believed himself superior, Feldway's presence radiated an energy on par with, if not exceeding, the dragon species. One misstep could mean death. He reminded himself to remain vigilant. Meanwhile, Leon and the others faced their own grim reality. Even their strongest ultimate techniques had failed against Milim. Their most powerful attacks couldn't even pierce the invisible barrier, a mere byproduct of Drago Nova. The power gap was staggering, yet Leon remained unfazed. Victory was never the goal, only keeping Milim distracted. Elmesia and Sylvia agreed, recognizing that speed was their only advantage. Sylvia, in her usual way, playfully teased Leon about his supposed talent for running away, much to his frustration. The banter, though lighthearted, served a purpose. In the face of near-certain death, camaraderie kept them sharp, ensuring they entered battle in peak condition. Then, at last, the inevitable became reality. The target was confirmed.